Hello and welcome back to my channel. In this video I'll be showing you how I made this card for the current Lawn Fanatics challenge. For my stamp sets that I used Caramel Apple, Donut Worry, Thanks a Latte, Happy Harvest, Let's Toast, Sweet Friends, Scripty Autumn Sentiments, and You Autumn Know. So, well, here's some zig glue. This is a two-way glue. You can either use it as a permanent bond or a temporary bond. I did not have masking paper, or not enough masking paper. So I cut out all of my, or I stamped and cut out all of my images that I was going to use, and then I applied that glue to the back to make masks. Now, for this, I'm doing a scene card instead of doing die cut pieces, which isn't something I do often because I do not like fussy cutting. But here I am trying to figure out what I needed to do first. For this, I actually made a little rough draft, I guess. I stamped all my stuff in the order I wanted it on a separate scrap piece of paper, and then I went through and figured out what I needed to stamp first, what I needed to stamp second, and so on until I got all the pieces marked. That way I wouldn't have to worry quite so much about thinking that hard about what I had to stamp in what order, because when you have a lot of stuff, it can be very tricky. And there is one spot where I almost messed up, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but thankfully I caught myself because this is a lot of work. But after I stamp something down, I do put its coordinating mask down. Now for this challenge, it is, I think, tea, coffee, and treats. And I love making a scene card with food and drink. Like, it's one of my favorite things to do. I've made several. If you guys follow me on Instagram, and even, have you seen a couple of my videos, you'll know that that's something I do pretty regularly. And I love when they're themed. So this one is obviously fall themed. Now, I did just reach 100 YouTube subscribers, so I am going to do a giveaway. To one person, I will be giving away the Lawn Fawn Critters in the Arctic stamp set, as well as Carved Pumpkin Distress Oxide ink. Now, details will be further in the video. You'll just have to stay tuned and listen to me ramble on, and I do apologize for that. Alright, so for now, I'm just stamping all the things. This takes a little bit of thought, like I said, but I had already marked it out, so it actually wasn't too terrible. If you don't like fussy cutting things, this is not for you. And I will also add that because I didn't cut out the little centers of my cup handles, part of the stamps didn't stamp, which really wasn't that big of a deal. You'll never even notice. Alright, for my pastry colors, I'm using YR31. What was the other ones? 24 and 27. I have them written down. All I have to do is look. This worked out well because I was able to use a lot of the same colors for the whole card. And I know it probably seems a little silly to have a Pop-Tart in this whole thing. I guess truly nothing in it makes complete sense. But together I thought they'd all be cute. And they all roughly work together. I mean, sizing's still a little off, but I guess you don't really think about that when you're just looking at a card. For my darker colors on my donuts and my Pop-Tart, I did try to keep the darker color towards the edge. Now I'm using our 35, 37, 39, and 59 to create little cranberries or some other berries inside of my muffin. And for this, I just kept the shading minimal and towards the bottom left side of each of my little blobs, just to make it look like something might actually be sticking out of the muffin. For the muffin itself, I decided to use my darker colors towards the bottom and make a bunch of dots. I also added a little bit of the darker YR color right underneath of my little berry blobs. And after all this is done, I do take my white gel pen and I add just a tiniest little bit of highlight to my, like I said, berry blobs. I don't really know. In my mind, I guess it's cranberry, but it can be whatever you want it to be. For my apple, for the top, I am using YG 3, 5, 13, and 17. And I think I'm okay with this green apple color. Sometimes I start doing a color for something and decide I don't really like it. Now here is where I change things up. The last caramel apples I did my caramel apple colors in completely different E markers. For these, I'm using E35, 37, E35? No, E95, 97, and 99. I actually like this one better. At first I wasn't sure because that E95 is very light. For my stick, I'm just using 50, 51, and 53 E markers. And now I'm using E30, 31, 35, and 57 for my graham cracker and the s'mores. Now for the chocolate part of my s'more, I'm using E23, 25, 27, and 29. And you're not going to see most of this. I did try to leave a little bit of a highlight on it just to make it look, I don't know, shiny, glossy, I don't know. And now I am using the exact same colors for my hot chocolate. I did try to keep the shading towards the bottom of the marshmallows where they meet the liquid and also just around both edges of the cup. My next beverage is E35, 25, and 57. I didn't want this to look exactly like hot chocolate. Thought maybe some kind of coffee or latte or I don't know, whatever you like. I just wanted it to be a little bit different. For the whipped cream and the marshmallows, I'm just using W00 and W2. For these, I just need minimal shading. I just didn't want to leave them stark white. As I colored this Pop-Tart, I realized I did not show the colors that I was using, and I do believe that was Y 15, 17, and 38 maybe? I can't remember exactly. I wanted it to have sort of a yellowy orange look. I struggled with the color for the Pop-Tart and both donuts because I didn't want to leave a bunch of white icing, and I also didn't want to really tap into the Halloween colors and themes because I was going for fall specifically, not Halloween. For my little sprinkles, I'm just using colors that I already had out on my desk, so I think I used some of my E90 markers, and I can't remember what the brown one is. But I also decided to take my white gel pen and add some white sprinkles just to lighten it up. I'm using E40, 41, and 42 for the icing on one of my donuts. When I color the donut icing, I tend to keep my darker colors both around the inside ring and the outer edge of the frosting. To blend it, I did use my zero marker, which generally you don't use for blending. I was just trying to make it blend in with the white paper a little bit. Now I'm using some of my brown markers to make sort of a chocolate drizzle. And I used my lighter marker first, and then I go in with the darker marker just around the edge, just to make it look like it's not completely flat. Now my YG03 and what was it, Y13, and one of my brown colors. I can't keep up. I just decided to make my leaves multicolor. This is another one of those things that I looked at that card and looked at that card and looked at that card, and I could not figure out what color I wanted to do the leaves. And I could have done them a little bit mismatched, but I didn't want to do that because, I don't know, I just have a thing with having things symmetrical. So I decided to just do a leaf that was in the stages of changing color. Right now I'm using Y15, 17, 38, and YR24 for my largest pumpkin. I do a flicking motion with my marker to give it some amount of texture so my pumpkin's not so flat. And I started out with my lightest color, and then I went in with my darkest color. And the reason I did this was because I know I can be a little too heavy-handed with my dark marker, so I laid out the lightest color where I knew I wanted my darker shading, or at least to give me some kind of guide to stay within those lines. So that when you see me do that, that's what I'm doing. Now I'm using R85, 56, 59, and RV69 for my largest mug. And if you watched one of my other videos where I colored mugs, you'll know that I usually keep the shading to the left and the right of the mug and leave the highlight in the center. And all this does is help the mug look more round. So I do this for both of the mugs. And I start with my lightest color, again, to sort of map out how far I can go with my darkest color. And for these, I'm using 4 colors. I don't always. I think I'm getting more comfortable with my markers, so I've been pulling out 4 marker blends a little bit more. And if that's not something you're comfortable with, feel free to do 2 or 3 markers. It's just a matter of personal preference. And I can say with time, you'll probably get to where you want more colors too. Like, I didn't think I would. I thought 3 colors, that's plenty. And I just find more and more I'm gravitating towards 4 colors. Alright, my next mug is V91, 93, and 95. The mugs I contemplated doing more of a teal color, but then decided I wanted my background to be a little bit more teal color. So, again, this is another struggle I had. I don't know, I struggled a lot with the color choices. And there's a couple of them that I'm not super happy with. And one of them you'll see is those 2 little leaves in the front. Did not enjoy those, but once I colored it, it was too late. And here I'm just making little round sprinkles on my donut, and then I'm going to color in the frosting with my brown markers to look like it's chocolate. This was tedious. I'm not mad at it. I think it turned out okay. It's just not something I'm super fond of. I prefer to have a light color where I can just color or stamp over the top of it and not have to worry about coloring around all these things. But here you can see really well that I leave the center lighter and I do the very inner part of the donut circle and the outside of the icing a little bit darker, just to make it look like it's on a rounded top as opposed to a flat top. Here I'm just using my V90 markers to color in the cupcake liner. I hadn't been sure of what color I was going to do, so I waited till last. Now my E40, 41, and 42 markers I used to color my small pumpkin to look like one of those more white looking pumpkins. I thought about doing this one like blue. I guess it's called a blue pumpkin. Alright, now I'm using these markers that I regretted using as my leaves. I felt like in the end they were a little bit too dark, but once I had done that first leaf it was a little too late. So this is one of the parts of the card that I'm kind of disappointed with. Ultimately, I really don't know what colors I would have done the leaf though, because I wanted to do red, but I didn't really feel like I had a red that looked like a fall leaf. And maybe it was just me trying too hard to match exactly a red fall leaf. I don't know. Now I am taking all my masks and I am putting them back over their corresponding images. Now this is not done in any specific order. I had to cover them all up because I was going to ink blend the background. And because these aren't done with masking paper, and it's just paper that I cut and added glue to, I am going to take some washi tape and tape them all down to each other, especially because there are some very small pieces that I didn't want to fly up. Now for my background, I'm using Peacock Feathers Distress Oxide. And again, this is nothing special. I say again, I just did a voiceover for another video, so I think I'm getting confused. Oh, goodness. A lot of my ink blending, though, isn't really anything special. So I'm just trying to keep it a little bit darker at the bottom and a little bit lighter at the top. Now, before I get too far, I do... well, no, I'm doing something else now. All right. Smitty's ABCs. I'm using that to make part of my sentiment. But back to the coloring. If you notice, the center of the donuts are colored in. And I didn't do that with the Distress Oxide. I actually used my, what was it, BG45 marker to fill in those spots. Now, with the Smitty's ABCs, I used it to make the words sweet and wishes. Now I have Lawn Fawn sunflower, carrot, and walnut inks, and I am using it to make a ombre effect on this autumn sentiment. And the first time I cut it out, I didn't get it lined up well. So you'll see me with the second one, and what I did was I used my die to cut the just plain white paper first, and then I taped the die cut piece into the paper, and then I laid my stamp over it in the stamp positioner, and I stamped it directly onto the die cut piece. Now it's more centered. But it's not a big deal. I'm going to use my messed up one, and I'm going to glue it behind the good one just to give my sentiment just a little bit more dimension. And there it is. And I decided to use some brown cardstock for my background behind my main panel. And I'm just going to attach that to the card base. For this, I'm using score tape. And then I'm going to adhere my main panel down using score tape and liquid glue. And the liquid glue, I'm sure you guys have already heard this before, but I just put it on there to make sure that my tape doesn't stick too well before I get it in the exact right position, because I am terrible with that. I'm always getting things off center and it irritates me. Alright, you guys, so if you made it this far and you'd like to enter the giveaway, I would like you to leave a comment in the comment section below and let me know what your favorite fall activity is. If you are chosen, I will reply to your comment and let you know an email address that you can contact me so that you can claim your giveaway items, which is the Distress Oxide in the color Carved Pumpkin and the Lawn Fawn stamp set Critters in the Arctic. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll be back with another video soon. Bye!